That's pretty good. Dan here, driving all over the place, speed shop. So, where we kind of left in the last video, one of the last videos, we got a lot going on right now. We bought ourselves a blower. It's a mini one. It's nothing fancy, but it's a blower, and I've never had one, and I'm pretty excited about it. So, the story with this thing was, Dave Newbern gave me a text or call maybe 2 or 3, well, September. It was, Summit was running a Labor Day sale or something like that. He was down there, of course, wasting all his money because he's fantastic like that. Likes, put the money back in the economy through speed parts. And he was talking to the guy, and they had some display model blowers. So they had this little guy, which is a long snout 142, and he got a 671. Now, the deal is, so Weiand is currently, like Holly, not making blowers. I don't know if it's forever or just for right now, but they're discontinued. So there's no use for them having them on display. So this thing had been on display for something like 12 or 15 years or something. So it's been sitting there, it's full of oil, it still has the sticker on the bottom, hasn't been touched. I'd lift it up, but it's heavy. I'm sure it's been spun, a bunch of times by everybody going by and looking at them. But anyway, so I got a heck of a deal on it. Right now they're retailing, if you can find them, for like, well, $4,000 to $5,000 Canadian, but still, it's, it's real money. And people are rebuilding them and all that, so they're kind of neat. The idea is they add anywhere from 20 to 40% power and kind of low-end torque. So a lot of people are saying kind of like 100 horsepower, give or take. And they kind of top out, around 5 or 550. I guess they just can't cram enough flow through them or something along those lines. So we're not going to set the world on fire, but the motor we have in this fine 55 Chevy Nomad. So if you happen to be new here or you've forgotten, I built this thing there, and it was beat rough and all that. Anyways, it's got a 49-inch, got a Tremec TKX 5-speed, and it's got this little mystery motor, which I bought off a guy who's a really good guy. Unfortunately, he has now passed. And I believe it had a dyno number of like 300 or 320 horsepower. It's kind of like gone over. Edelbrock aluminum heads, it's got some trick stuff, got a decent little camshaft in it. I don't know the specs off heart. And it boogies. It goes pretty good. There's no bones about it. But you can always use more power, right? We run a big set of, it's kind of all jacked up high because I got air shocks in it, but 295/65, so they're like a 30 by 13 or 12.5. They're a pretty big tire. And we have 410s, but those big tires soak up a lot of gear. They are quite wide, so you really got to rally on the thing to get the tires to break loose and stuff. But it moves. It's a good little mill, a good little setup. I can't go wrong. We were running a, where did I put it? Oh, single tunnel ram with a Holly XP 650 on it. Anywho, the way this blower works, we're going to put this intake manifold on. I have to take it off and clean it all, bolt it down, seal it. That then fits on top. Now, I had to do some screwing around today because when I bought it, it didn't have any of the mounting hardware, which is such as life. So it was a bunch of weird stuff, which I didn't have in stock. The blower's held down by 7/16 bolts. They do sell like a kit. 4 bolts is like $125. And they just said they were 7/16 stainless. So I was like, I ain't buying those. Now, I was talking to some people, and they were saying, I guess, on a lot of the bigger blowers, stuff is aluminum. And it's meant, so if there's an issue, the bolts will break or the threads will pull or whatever it may be, which we're not going to do on this. Now, obviously the factory ones are stainless, so it's probably fine. 2, there's no blow off on these things, fine. A lot of things people are saying, though, because it's a serpentine belt setup, if there's any issues, that will slip. So I'm going with that, hoping for the best. This is essentially the pulley, which I believe just goes on the crank. And so I had to get a long crank bolt and some long pulley bolts to kind of bolt this all together. I'm going to pull the rad out just so I can get to it. As you can see, it's kind of stepped down. So hopefully this will fit inside the crank pulley I have. I have a 3-rib crank pulley. And then that'll run around the water pump and life will be good. We have room, the snout of the blower doesn't touch the radiator and like that, so that should be fine. We had a tunnel ram kind of on it, so the linkage should be pretty close. We're going to lock out the distributor and put some timing in it, like not pull timing out, I should say, like 29, 30 degrees, you know, be careful with it. And then it's got the cert belt that came with it, which is probably old as heck and has a couple of cuts in it, but you know what? We have a belt number, so we can get a new one at any time. Yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. I'm going to pull the rad out. I've drained all the coolant out, this thing had water in it, so I bought coolant to put back in. I'm going to do an oil change on it because it hasn't had one since who knows when. And we'll start slapping it all together. We'll probably get a fair bit done today if we don't run into any roadblocks, but I'm sure we're missing little things like plugs and junk like that. But, oh, and for a carburetor, we have an FST 750 with a vacuum, or boost reference, sorry, coming. So that won't be here for a little while yet, but we might just fire it up off this 650 and she'll probably be okay for now. Okay, so we got the radiator out, and I pulled the pulley off the crank. Now the way this is going to work, hang on, I got to take this out. Just look at the fender, look at the fender. So this is essentially going to fit inside, kind of something like that. Unfortunately, the crank bolt I got is a little short. It just kind of barely reaches. I like a little bit more. So this is kind of awkward and heavy and probably won't fit in perfect, but that's essentially what we're going to have, and that's, I guess, the correct spacing it wants. And then all we're going to do is we're going to take these long 3/8 fine bolts. Of course, it's going to be a pain to try and, come on, find your spot. There we go. So that'll go through, essentially sandwich on like that, and then the crank bolt will go through the center and hold the whole mess, hold the balancer on. So I'm going to put that on. I'm going to use that crank bolt, but I'm not going to, go crazy with it. Let's put it in there, and tomorrow we'll get another one, just make sure everything's lined up. But that'll give us our whole kind of front dress, and really, we should be able to put everything on. I took the radiator off just from ease of getting in there and kind of showing you guys, so I did it for you. You're welcome. But that can go in, then we can slam the radiator in and fill it with coolant tomorrow. That's super easy. So we'll get that dialed together real quick. Right quick. I have to clean off the intake manifold surface. I'll show you that. I silicone the intake on, which I know is a big no-no, but there were some kind of scratches and stuff, like somebody cleaned it not with a razor blade at some point. So I was like, you know what? This intake's never going to come off. I might as well silicone it. 4 months later. But now this one's never going to come off, so I will silicone this one down. We'll drain the oil out. We'll probably do the oil change. We set the blower on top, set the whole dress on. We can really do a whole lot. I mean, it's just one crank bolt. So, yeah, we'll get this kind of sorted. I'll bring it back and just see how it's going to look. But I think it should be pretty simple. You guessed it. We're a ways in the future. So, before I went going crazy on this, I thought, you know what? I better make sure this belt is friggin' pretty true, right? Running true. So, I took my square, and we're pretty good. Oh, it's going to show me here. But anyways, it's good. Now, as you can see, there's no pulley on that to run the drive. Now, the reason being, there's all this temporary on there. When this goes on, it's got, you can see how thick that is through the bolt hole, but there's like, it's got to be a 1/4 inch. Because what this is it's one pulley with another one, and they're all kind of compressed. And you can see this step it has in it. So what it did when this was on there and that pulley was on there, the blower drive, it was out like a rib. So you could put it on there, it probably would have been okay, but it was out a rib. And that's, serpentine belts, don't like that. So, well, I don't know if I had the other one. Anyways, so I went and got this, ran to the parts store. They had a single, but it's kind of deep, and it was riveted together. So what I did was I drilled out the rivets. So I took this piece out, then this piece, stupid one-hand job, that piece comes out, which I don't know what, like this isn't attached there, it's like, whatever. Which leaves us with this. So now it's just the thickness, you know, whatever that's going to be, of the pulley. So I'm hoping that that's what we're going to do. The balancer is bottomed all the way out. That's all fine. The only other option would be mill a little bit off of the blower drive, which there's no way that is the proper way of doing this. So I'm going to put this hokey poke thing on there, but in theory it should fit a little better. This one was whatever. Or, I mean, buy a fancy aluminum one, but this is like $24. And that's really in the budget that we're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to put this together, see what it looks like, and hope for the best. What a weird... I don't understand why they would do this. Like, and it was like chrome or something like that they painted. Like, it's... I don't know, China. Like, that's what you buy. Why? Why is it like that? But anyway, put it together, see what happens. Well, move the persuasion hammer. We're about as close as I think I'm going to be able to make it, so I don't know. Seems okay. I mean, if you kind of just, it's maybe just a little bit out. The other thing I was thinking though, so I put the intake on just loose with some bolts. There's just 2 bolts holding the blower in, so maybe once that is all done, maybe it's slightly pulling ahead, because there is obviously some tension on that. So originally the manifold did want to lift, so I put a couple bolts at the back, but nothing is locked down, so maybe it just has just a little bit of movement. Either way, we're going to carry on, because this part, there ain't a whole lot of adjustment. That's going to be what it's going to be. If we have to do anything, worst case, we could mill a little bit of that blower pulley off, but I gotta think that, I mean, it's meant just to bolt on. So maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's just, that's what it's going to be. I mean, we're talking less than a 16th out. So maybe there's that much tolerance in the belt. Also, it's all grooved. There's no, like typically belts when they come off, they're going to come off the rounded idler side. These are all grooved. So it should hang on and be fine. So I'm going to carry on. And what I'm going to do is take the whole mess apart, clean the gasket material or the surface, put the gaskets on with some silicone, put the intake on, let that sit for a little bit, and then go have some dinner, because after dinner things always go better. Then I got to get the gasket for the blower, plunk that on, and start reassembling as much as possible. Lower section of intake is on. I had to order one of these gaskets, so I got one of them. Slap that on there. Now, again, there's all sorts of special bolts. We just got generic ones. Some of these are open into the intake plenum. So I'm going to use some thread sealant. I use that on all the bolts just because they go into some oil galleys or water or whatever. I mean, it doesn't hurt to put it on there. It doesn't hurt anything as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to put the blower on. What I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to pull one bolt up, maybe just drain. It's got oil in it, but I'm just going to drain some out and I'm going to fill it with fresh gear oil. That's all it takes. So I'm going to do that real quick. It looks like just an Allen or something like that, maybe. Or at this point, I got to just flip it upside down, drain out the fill. Get all that junk out. We'll plunk it on there. We'll torque it all down. Some guys say you can use a little baby powder or something like that in this gasket, but so it doesn't screw up, you have to take the blower off. I ordered 2 gaskets, so we'll put one on the shelf. Hopefully it won't have to come out for any reason. And plug it in there. I'm hoping I'll be able to fit the distributor in. I'm thinking, people apparently you can fit an HEI in there, people are saying. So I should be able to plunk that in there without having issues with the blower on. And then I'll get some new hardware tomorrow. kind of test fit it all and start assembling. Really, it wasn't that bad. So far, so good. I did buy an alternator somewhere. I don't know what I got for bracketry, so I'll have to do some figuring on that too, because it was all kind of a little janky, but we'll get her dialed. So I drained out the oil. It was like brand freaking new. Still had the factory sticker on the bottom. So 10 foot-pounds is all you torqued this to, which just seems like next to nothing, but that's just fine. So we get this thing kind of dialed together. This gasket. Oh, this thing is actually kind of heavy. Heavier than I thought, I should say. Okay. Everything's out of whack, shocker. So, my bolts. So, we'll jam this thing all together and kind of torque it all down, let it settle. We'll fill it back up with gear oil, put the belts back on. I'm going to run a spacer in the carburetor because, you know, obviously spacer on everything. And then I think that's it for tonight. And tomorrow we can get the hardware, get that all dialed together. I'm waiting on a phone call back from a buddy just to see what their thoughts are with this blower drive. If I should worry about it or just kind of send her home, because now's the time to mess with it before the radiator's in. And I'm going to put some sealant on these bolts real quick. You know, I probably should have done is maybe put some sealant right in the holes. But yeah, it'll be fine. I know it's a mini blower, but I am so excited. It just looks so freaking cool. I put the square back on it, and actually with everything torqued down and everything, it's like pretty much perfect. I mean, it's fine. That's what I'm gonna say. We'll just put this carburetor on there. We'll probably use it to fire it up. I really just want to hear what kind of whine this thing makes, if any. I don't think it's gonna be much, but such is life. So I think that's where I'm gonna leave it for tonight. Tomorrow, alternator in. I do some funny things with some spacing and some washers there to make it line up. This belt's pretty cool. Like, it's going to run on either side of the water pump, but there's still. I guess I could use the light, eh, buddy? And everything is aluminum, but you can still, you know, there's space there, so that should be just fine. Well, I guess you gotta put the V-belt on before the blower belt, eh? Okay, that'll be a job for tomorrow. Just turn that off. So tomorrow, we gotta get some hardware for that. There was no lock washers in the kit for these bolts, so I didn't put any on there. It's kind of one hand on a ratchet. The idea is you don't want to torque them too tight because it can distort the whole case, and that can kind of mangle up the rotors and stuff inside. That would be, well, less than ideal. I think at this point, though, we should be able to get... there's a few threads in there, but you know what? A bolt that's a ½ inch longer would make me feel much better. And we can kind of dial it all together. Heater season, man, what a tough time. Alternator in, all that on, rad in. We got coolant. I got to get an oil filter because I don't have one for this thing. Do an oil change on it. And then, yeah. Distributor. There's still a few things, but I feel like if I get home tomorrow, I've tackled all of my issues as best I can. Story of my life. See you guys tomorrow. We have pumpkin pie. New day. I did a little bit of screwing around, got a few things, and did a couple things. I put on the alternator drive, so all the belts fit. I put in the crank bolt, the proper length one. So that is golden. I did get a few little miscellaneous bits here and there. I got some bigger jets, so I got some slightly bigger than what the 750 would come with. This is actually a 650, so I'm going to overjet it like crazy. You don't want to run this thing lean, so that's an issue. Now, we're just going to fire it up, kind of, you know, screw around a little bit. We're not going to do anything too crazy. I just want to hear it run. Carry on while we wait on the proper carburetor. Realistically, at this point, oh, Danny's looking good today. We can put everything kind of back together. So we'll do the jets, fuel line, battery lines, battery in, clean up a little bit. We'll do an oil change, put the radiator in, put coolant in it, so maintenance. Anyways, in the other garage, we have the distributor. So this thing has a MSD Pro billet. pretty swanky distributor. And what we're going to do is we're going to lock it out. So superchargers and all that sort of stuff, timing is kind of a big issue. Hang on, I'll just get you guys on the stand here. Adjusting. Ooh, look at that angle. So your typical distributor has advance in it. What's up, baby? Oh, I ate all the pie. Anyway, so what we're going to do, we're going to take this apart with a screwdriver that I don't have. Hang on, maybe I do. I don't. I gotta get a screwdriver and hear about eating all the pie from Danielle. Okay, I took my licks. You know, it's not my fault I ate all the pumpkin pie. So this is the distributor with the rotor off. So I'll hold the bottom so the shaft won't turn. What happens is, as this spins, there's weights here, and they fling out. As you can see, that's what advances your timing. Now, I already have these springs on here, which are light springs, so they wing out quickly, so it'll advance the timing quickly. But we're going to take all of this fine stuff off and pretend like I'm not going to lose it somewhere. So let's get all this junk off real quick. So with the springs off, there's a couple little bushings. Now they have different stops, different all sorts of things, but basically we're just gutting this unit. So that comes off, this comes off. So we're taking all the guts out of it. Now, the problem is, this still has some swing to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip it around. There's a roll pin that holds this gear on. We're going to knock the roll pin out, take the gear out, take the shaft out, spin this 180, and it'll lock it into place. I'll show you here in just a second. Watch me not break this. Okay, so roll pin out, gear off. It's a couple little like a bronze bushing and stuff, so we'll take that out. Now this, see how this comes up. Well, I guess we gotta take this apart too. Real quick, hang on. Okay, so we got this little piece off. Now what there is in here is this little bushing. I believe this is what controls how much timing it can have. But, I'm not really 100% on that. Anyway, so originally in here, that's where this little bushing would fit, and that's what gave you your advance. You can see it still advances. If we flip it 180 degrees, there's a hole. You put that up in there. We'll push that back down. You could put the nut on if you want, but I don't think there's any need for it. But now, if I hold the bottom, there's no play. There's no advance, I should say. So now we'll put this back on, like that. We will put this back on. Line her up. That's perfect. And knock the roll pin back in. Except I buggered it. Don't smash the gears, Dan. I know you want to, but don't do it. There we go. So that's all back together. Now if I hold the gear, this won't move. There's no play to it. So it's locked out. So essentially now, whatever your initial timing is will also be your advanced timing, which will be all of it. Put this sucker back on. Whoop, don't lose the screw. Lose the screw. And it only goes one way. We'll see you back at the car. Okay, so we're gonna work on the hood of the car. More wrong things the wrong way. So this carburetor is a Holley XP. This is a 650. Fantastic carburetor for wide open performance. I wouldn't say it's a daily driver deal, but it worked out pretty good. It was a little on the rich side during power tour, and since then, because guess what? I haven't done anything to it. I think I'd change a couple sets of plugs while you're out there, but it didn't like the kind of low RPM burbling. Oh, we'll just a little bit of fuel. Oh, we'll just drop that workspace down a little. So what we're gonna do, is change these jets. Now, I've been all over the internet, and it's kind of a catch-22. Now, honestly, I will say I've been talking to Vice Grip Derek. He's been a wealth of information on these little blowers. And he was saying, you know, with timing and use like a 750 with the boost reference and all that, which is all stuff I'm gonna do. So, you know, I appreciate the hell out of that guy. But in the meantime, the internet says a lot of people just use these with like quadrajets or whatever, and they just kind of, you know, it is what it is. You got a Holly, put a few bigger jets in them, or Edelbrock. Oh, have I never had this off? Oh, there we go. Ooh, don't rip the gasket there, guy. I think we're okay. So anyway, I believe these things are jetted square at like 72s or something like that. I think what I'm going to do is put 78s in the front and 80 somethings in the back. What are these? Yes, that's exactly what they are. So we're going to jet it up. Essentially, when you're under like boost and heavy load, you don't want to lean it out. That's when you have issues. The other thing I bought, which I won't put in this video, I'll probably do the next video. We'll do the carburetor and this in the next one, actually driving it. But a air fuel, you know, a wideband gauge. I tell you what, my first one I ever had, I put in that Chevy too, and I was, you know, read the plugs and see how it feels and this and that, all those things. That right there is fantastic. They're not cheap. I mean, they're a few $100s. But it gives you an idea of what's like at idle, what's under tip in, what's it at wide open, and it can really help you, you know, jet the carburetor, tune the carburetor, you know, play with your metering and all that. Like it is worth it. And if you're smart, which I'm not, but if you actually look at it, if you're running a situation like this with boost and all that, it will save the motor from, well, it won't save it, but it will show you what's happening, and if you're smart enough, you can save the motor, right? So we'll just get this thing dialed together real quick, and then it's basically ready to go on. After that, I will roll the motor over real quick. I might have Danny come out. Maybe I'll do it after supper, but we'll roll it over so it's at number 1, top dead center. We'll stab the distributor in, get a ballpark timing mark. We've done an oil change. Oil's in it, ready to go. Filter's in, ready to go. I think we just got to kind of, well, I got to wire it, put plug wires on, radiator in, coolant, a little bit of linkage. I think there's some vacuum lines which I have to deal with, or vacuum ports, I should say, on this, on the blower, which I'll probably just block off for right now. Don't want to screw this up. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all she wrote. Pretty simple little setup. So we'll see. Definitely not cheap, but again, Derek was like, you'll love it. So that guy understands hot rods. I'm in. Get this dialed with, and then we'll, yeah, a clip or two later we'll be running. Attempted to be running. What a fiasco it's been. So we're getting ready to fire this thing up. I saved you some of the drama. There's all sorts of little pain in the butt things. So getting the water neck in, for instance, the blower actually had to be off to get the water neck on. So that's a nightmare. The way all your hose clamps are routed just to clear is a nightmare. Our throttle linkage is too short, so we're just going to kind of hand bomb it. This will be the fire up. Make sure everything's good. Make sure the blower doesn't calve in half or any of those things. Set the timing, a few of those things. I got a couple of plugs. I think these are vacuum or boost or however you want to look at that. So I think that's where the reference goes to the carburetor. Some of them are blind. Some of those two I think were tapped into manifold. So we gotta make sure that's good. Oh yeah. So anyways, try and let the blower, the carburetor to come off because the friggin' bolts are gonna hit. Like, oh, just what a disaster. I got the radiator in. I didn't hook the fans up. We put coolant in. We're going to start it off the Muromatic. Also, it looks like I rolled it over to get oil pressure. So I have a bit of a fuel leak. Yeah, it's gasoline, but we'll see if it actually leaks or not. It didn't leak before, it's tight. Anyways, timing is guesstimated, so we're going to switch over to the tripod. We'll get away from the microphone because I think it kind of blows out when we run this thing. And we'll see if he yaks a belt or not. I have the timing light set, so that's 29 degrees. So what this is essentially going to do is it's pulling back 29 degrees as to when it's firing. So, you see the little tip there and the line there? We're going to adjust the distributor until they're both, well, the line is in perfect line with the timing mark. That means it's going to be 29 degrees. Irrelevant if it's revved up or idling because we've locked out the distributor, and that's what we want this thing to have. That's a kind of a safe number, 29, 28 degrees. We'll then lock that down. We adjust the carburetor just a little bit, and hopefully it makes worry noises. So yeah, we cranked it over, it has oil pressure. There's obviously fuel in the carburetors. In theory, it should just brum. I don't have the alternator hooked up because I snipped the wires out of it to put in the Nova last minute when we went to cruising the coast. So we could use spades, but I'll just get the proper. They sell this little connector there, which is really nice. And it's like $9. So we'll just do that. Yeah, let's fire it up. Okay, so neutral, e-brakes on, turn on the ignition, turn off the garage heater. Oh, he's killing the shots. That time of year, eh? Okay, make sure starter button is away from heat source, which is touching the heat source. Where can we put this? Hopefully that'll be good. Alright, let's light this thing off. Let's see what happens. That's nifty. Let's play with the, I'm going to play the tune up a little bit. Burn all the junk off, but pretty neat. So the car sounds about the same at idle and all that. There's not a whole lot of blower whine or anything. But the induction noise, the induction noise, woo-wee, is that cool. That's pretty good. Worth every penny. Oh, well, I think I'll see that neutral actually. I think that's where I'm gonna leave it for this video. So it wicks up, it sounds cool, it must have more horsepower. Timing locked out 29 degrees, fattened it up, it definitely feels rich in here, the eyeballs. So now that it runs, we have to do a few little things. Mount the radiator properly. I just had everything kind of in there gingerly in case it all had to come out. But I'm happy with it. So we got to wire up the alternator, hook up the fan, hook up the wipers, throttle linkage. We got to do some boost ports or whatever. So I probably should just put some barbs in there and cap the barbs. That way we can just use those for vacuum. I got to get on Google and download the instructions maybe. See what the deal is with those. Because there's a bunch of little ones there. Must be for throttle linkage or something. But anyways, we got a throttle cable. What else was I going to say there? I think I might put some fancy ignition on this thing so you can kind of play with timing and let it come in. Because the thing with timing is... There's a little watery in that gear oil there. Maybe that should be changed again, but whatever. What was I going to say there? Oh, carburetor, we got to do that. But the way timing is, you put more timing in if you have good fuel and you have, you know, the proper plugs at higher RPM, all these things. You just don't want it kind of at the wrong times. It's all about timing. What else we got going on there? I think that's about it. I'm going to disconnect the battery. We're going to call it a win for today. Whew. That was fun. I enjoyed that. So, yeah, I think this thing should rip and rock. Thank you very much for watching. At the very least, you know what we'll do in the next video. We'll put all this stuff together. We'll take it for a rip around the block. We'll see. I don't know if I'll have the carburetor in time before I have to leave for work. And these damn day jobs really get in the way of your free time. But, yeah. Thanks again, Newbern and Vice Grip for helping me out with these, you know, Newbern buying this thing for me. Vice Grip helped me talk me through it. We'll see if we should do an oil change on it. And, yeah, kind of keep hammering, but it's bitching.